Okay, so you should now see my presentation, which is going to record in a different way. So you're going to have to see this. Is there a way of doing it full screen? Sorry, you can tell this is my first attempt, but you'll be able to see, and we'll talk about it anyway. So, yeah, welcome to the first part of a three-part series I'm producing on the words and the deeper meanings of these words that I've decided to change in my offering, which was tarot guidance, alchemical tarot guidance. I've changed that recently to intuitive medicine readings. And you know that I love etymology, you know that I love words. So what I decided to do was break down each word in intuitive medicine readings so that we can first of all understand that word and understand that word on a deeper level, and also apply it to my offering as well. So I will be talking about how I help serve people during this, but the main thrust of this presentation is about the word intuition, because these truly are magical words. All words are spells, which is what magic is. It's, as Mark Passio said, it's language designed to change consciousness in some way, whether for good or evil. Everything's a double-edged sword, as I'm sure you know from following my channel. So, being part one, this is obviously going to be all about intuition. As I said, I love etymology, so we can go into the layers of a word and uncover the kind of foundations of it, really. I like Etym Online. I will put some links in the show notes after I publish the recording, so you can go back and look at anything I refer to. So Etym Online, that's my go-to place. So if we first go there and see what we can glean from the word intuition. Okay, so we're first told that intuition is insight, and it's direct or immediate cognition, spiritual perception, and it's originally theological. So what really strikes me about this first part of the etymological breakdown is the words direct and immediate, because every single avatar, every single, at least the esoteric side of every single religion or spiritual practice is about direct and immediate experience, which means to be present. Zen Buddhism is probably the one that talks about it the most directly, to use that word again. And it's only when you're present, when you're not in the past or the future or feeling contracted through too much thought, it's when you're truly present that you are blessed with intuition. So let's just quickly summarize intuition in another way. I would put it that it's a knowing that's beyond thought and emotion, because it's thought and emotion. That's usually how we try and ascertain the truth of something. And that's the way we're kind of taught. That's the masculine and the feminine way. But there's a third way, and that's the intuition. There's a fourth way, which is feeling, sensation. But as we're focusing on intuition, that's where we're going to stick with for today. So what this direct and immediate experience is kind of telling us about this intuition is that in the quest that we're all on, the reason we've come to Middle Earth on this wheel of samsara is that we have to learn that it can only be ourselves and our own direct and immediate experience that is going to achieve this hero's journey, this remembering of who and what we truly are. No one else is going to be able to walk that path for you. There's guides, there's mentors along the way, sure, but the direct experience means that It's a knowing of what you are, which is, I would say, source, forgetting that it's source, pretending to be an Aaron or a whoever. That knowing of what you are isn't going to be taught to you dogmatically, like any of the number of New Age or Old Age religions based on dualism. You know, that there is a God and it's outside of you. You're never going to realize your true nature dogmatically. This is one of the main shadow sides of the tarot's Hierophant for anyone who studies tarot. You know, it's blind faith in tradition, blind faith in a guru, any attachment to an ideology, basically, rather than having the courage to walk your own path in your own way. Again, this doesn't mean we throw out all tradition. There's some things in there that are beautiful truths that actually serve our hero's journey. But what intuition is saying is that there has to be a point where those outer gurus are less influential in your path than that inner guru that we're going to spend kind of the rest of this talk about. By the way, there will be time for questions at the end, or if you guys have any thoughts or insights. This presentation is probably going to take about another 20 minutes, I would say, 25 minutes tops. And then I'll open up the chat and anyone can ask questions. So, yeah. So, yeah, as we said, we've got to kind of stop, not trusting, but needing the outer guru as much, because we're tapping into this inner guru. I like what a great teacher, therapist called Gabor Mate said in a video I watched recently. Again, I'll put the link in the notes. And he said that the job of a therapist, and I'm not labeling myself a therapist, by the way, is to get fired as quickly as possible. And that's the role of a true guide and mentor, is to serve you in awakening that inner voice that's always been there, and it's always been guiding you along your path to quote unquote enlightenment, or as the Japanese Buddhists call it, Satori. It's these awakening experiences where you have direct and immediate experience. That's when the synchronicities and that feeling of oneness and grace come over you, and it's completely unadulterated by ego mind, self-reflectivity. In fact, in those moments, the self isn't there. There is just the direct experience of the truth, of what you are. And again, I'm not downplaying the importance of ego. That's our hero. That's our sun and what we're here to mature. But those moments of wholeness, of truth, come from a level beyond ego mind. So yeah, what we can say about intuition then is that it's a connection to that whole, beyond the ego, that you truly are, unity consciousness, basically. We could also say that intuition is a flash of truth, like I said, a momentary connectivity back to source. It's not something in the moment, at least, that we can think or feel much about, because it's coming from more profound, deeper depths of you. It's again a direct knowing, or maybe it's a remembering is a better way of putting it. Piecing the whole of your psyche back together rather than just the sun or the moon or whatever's most dominant in your chart. Okay, so let's carry on here. So the next thing that Etim Online links it back to is a looking at or consideration. So this is exactly what we do in our readings together when I help clients. We're looking at, we're considering, I like the word contemplating. Con is with, temples is with the temples, so within the temples, your story. And we're going to see as we go along about why the importance of the temple and the brow is so important with intuition shortly. So together, when we do a reading, we're looking at your experience of your hero's journey. Like I said, no one else can walk it for you. I can't walk it for you, but we can look at some of the symbolism in your life and some of the messages that are sometimes easy to miss. And we're going to find in those readings new ways of seeing your experiences in life, either as opportunities for growth, but also as, those things in your life that feel like they're limiting you or restricting you from growth. And the way I often work is by looking at the two of those things and how they interact, because when you know about the laws of the universe and of rhythm, there's always a dance, and polarity, I should say. There's always a dance between light and dark, expansion and contraction. And through those two forces, which are always going to happen, 11:11, by the way, through those two forces, there's going to be something born. And what we're looking at through our reading is, with consciousness, how can we use our intuition and the gained knowledge to find that third path, the synthesis, the thing that makes you feel like you're growing, that there is greater meaning and clarity in your life. So I'm not going to lie, sometimes these readings can be difficult. They release a lot of pent up emotion sometimes, or things that, you weren't aware of. A lot of the time, things that you are aware of, it's just good to have confirmation of. But we're always going to come from a place of compassion during those readings. So, I've been on many underworld journeys, as I'll talk about in a minute. So, these readings are calming, bringing peace, all those kind of things. So let me have a sip of this brew. Bear with me. Okay, so back to Etim Online. And this is where I really started to get interested, more so than the others, even though they were interesting themselves. So we find that intuition also means to watch over. Now, watching over, who is it that is watching over us? What's gifting our conscious mind with these lightning bolts from Zeus? That's how the ancients used to see it, that these flashes of eureka were thunderbolts from Zeus, the Jupiter, the expansive force, the positive father figure. So as those of you who have followed me for a while, symbolically, words have multiple layers of meanings. Etymologically, like we've looked at, but it's also often by breaking the word down phonetically that we also get some deeper layers of that word. So phonetically is breaking it down into its individual sounds. So let's do this. Intuition, tuition. Sorry to make it really stupidly clear, but maybe a better phrase question then, instead of who is it is watching over us, is that who are we intuition with? Who's our teacher? Firstly, let me just make it quite clear that I'm not asking to be your teacher or your guru or anything like that. I've never particularly wanted any kind of power like that over people. I love to share this everything that I'm fascinated with, but the guru thing, not my bag. Hopefully I share things that are useful. And as I said before, during our readings with many of you, I'm as enlightened after the reading as when I'm more enlightened after the reading than I was before, because you guys teach me so much, and in all your comments as well are, so insightful. So thank you. Okay, so who then really is the tutor? Well, let's again look at the word. The first part of intuition gives us the clue. It's the tutor that's already inside of us. It's been called various names throughout the ages. It's our genius, our daemon, our conscience. I like Michael Tsarian's term, which is our inner oracle, because I think that feels the most right to me. It's basically that small, quiet voice or seer, the one that sees within, that knows some of the challenges, the obstacles that are in your way currently. It knows the limiting beliefs that you may have about yourself, but, and this is the key, is that it always knows the way forward for you to achieve your quest, to find your enlightenment, that peace that we're looking for, to find self with a capital S, that you came to this reality to accomplish. The intuitive part of the medicine reading then is basically coming together in a peaceful but honest conversation, as you know, we will talk about shadow and light. It's a conversation, a way of contacting your inner guru, and the awareness within you that sits at your center and that has a far more holistic, compassionate perspective than the fearful ego. The ego, again, is the sun, it's the hero. It strives to achieve, it strives to shine. And one of the wounds of the sun and of Leo is that it cares too much about what other people are thinking. So when we're kind of, I've lost my track with that. So anyway, ignore that bit. So what I was saying is that this intuitive medicine reading is helping you contact the other parts of the psyche. So the Jupiter within you, the Saturn within you, the Venus, Mars, all of the archetypes, so that it's not just the ego that's kind of the star of the show, even though in a way it is. But we want to hear from those other cast of characters within you. So we're trying to get past that limited ego mind, essentially, because this entire psyche, the entire cast of characters, which through tarot, through astrology and other practices I use in the readings, we can start to understand why you are on your journey and your current difficulties, the way forward. And we can also kind of strengthen that ability that you already have to listen to your genius, your higher self. And you might just find that, you have a guide, friend, a counsel, as we'll talk about in a minute, that you never knew that you had, or you did, and you just wanted an ability to connect on a greater level. So, we mentioned the word counsel. This is another name for the genius, the inner oracle. I first heard this in Anthony Peake's great book, The Daemon, A Guide to Your Extraordinary Self. Again, I'll put a link down in the notes. And he writes about what Joan of Arc called her counsel, which again was her term for her inner oracle. Socrates again called his genius. And it was this voice inside a teenage girl, a 16-year-old peasant girl, that told her that she would be a leader of the French army, that she would help liberate France from the invading English army. Kind of unbelievable things, but these flashes of inspiration and intuition from her counsel came to her in, again, beyond the thought or emotion that she heard it as a voice, actually, but rather than thinking that was just a thought, she knew that it was something deeper. Like most of us, Joan resisted her conscience for some time, until eventually it became more and more forceful and persuaded her to leave her hometown and pursue that vision that it had shown her. And the same thing happens in our story. Usually when we resist change or resist taking right action and facing our hero's journey and doing what we know we want to do, there's greater and greater force applied by our conscience, by our inner oracle internally. And that itself can create change, the inner oracle. Usually at first, though, what happens is it's projected, it's mirrored. Projection is the psychological term, onto events or people in our lives. So if we have rage issue, usually we will encounter situations or people that mirror that rage that we can't face within ourselves. That's just one example. But in either case, whether this change comes about from listening to our inner oracle and that pressure that tells us to move, or whether it's from conflict and tension in our outer life, that tension builds to an extent where we're kind of pushed into making some kind of choice for better or worse. And the outcome, I believe, depends on the clarity of our consciousness. How able are we to be advised by our genius, or does that ego chatter mind get in the way? Okay, so back briefly to Joan of Arc. It was only by following miraculous, and I do mean miraculous literally, pieces of advice by her council, that she actually ended up managing to speak directly to the king, which is unheard of for a 16-year-old peasant girl. He gives her a command position in his military, and she goes off to war. She leads, her army. So along the way, her counsel becomes clearer and louder, and it keeps telling her instructions of what to do. And this is kind of what happens to us, as I've found and experienced, and many of the people I work with experience, is that the greater their connection to the inner oracle, along as we follow that intuition, the clearer it becomes. And one of the ways it happens or shows us the way is through synchronicity. Synchronicity is Carl Jung's word for a meaningful or apparently meaningful set of coincidences, but it's more than coincidence. It's something that snaps you out of life and go, wow, that's weird. And that's where the word actually weird comes from, is of divine fate and destiny. It's showing us how everything is connected. If we only have the eyes to see. We'll see a quote from Jung in a minute, which encapsulates it better than I just did. Okay, so when we can kind of interpret the synchronicities that we experience, or the omens, if you prefer that word, we have a greater ability to interpret them and recognize their meaning, because we have more of a connection with our counsel. And when you study the arts like tarot and astrology and symbolism, when we become more literate symbolically, we have a greater ability to decipher what these signs are telling us. Because really they're signs from our unconscious, again, that are trying to guide us along our way. So a greater connection to your inner oracle means a greater ability to take right action, which is an Eastern concept. It's basically action that is in harmony with what the moment requires, coming from a place of presence rather than being caught in the mind, which is usually fear-based. Okay, so when our ego thinks it's in control or in charge, we've got constant inner chatter. We've got fear, we've got judgment, and this constant sense of being apart from the Godhead, from the whole. I am a me, and I can be destroyed. I am just a, carbon-based life form, a fluke of nature, all that kind of stuff that they've indoctrinated us with from day zero. I like what, again, Michael Tsarian, one of my favorite teachers, refers it to as the janitor or the night watchman thinking it's the CEO. I like the night watchman allegory, actually, because the night watchman has a flashlight, and that's what the ego is. It's a way of directing consciousness in a certain way. But as soon as you direct consciousness on one point, the whole of the rest is in shadow. So again, that's what intuitive medicine reading is helping us doing, is uncovering those messages from the unconscious that the ego awareness needs to be more aware of for it to mature. Okay, so it's the ego, and it turned out to be Joan of Arc's ego as well, that loves to chatter loudly over our inner oracle. It's this addiction to the movement of mind that prevents us from hearing or from taking action on our counsel's advice, which only really comes through, in my experience, when we allow ourselves time for solitude and meditation and contemplation. So going within the temples. Our ego, whilst maturing at least, that's the ego's role, is to mature. It's uncertain. As I said, it's doubting, it's fearful, it's defensive, it contracts from life, and it often procrastinates from its great work, which is that rarefying or clarifying of consciousness from lead to gold. That's what alchemy is really talking about, is the perfection of our ego. Excuse me. And, the ego likes to do anything other, a lot of the time, than undertaking its own hero's journey. But once the ego and the inner oracle or the genius are in a more communicative or calmer relationship, which my readings, I hope, help with. Certainly the testimonials I get back, which you can see on my website, say that, so that's good. You might just find with that greater communication between your intuition and your ego, it's easier to embrace your adventure and to expand into it rather than contract from it, with greater conviction, walking perhaps more courageously. That's what I want to help with, really. So, yeah, what are we doing in these readings? Again, I know I keep saying what we're doing in these readings, but what we're really doing is forming a bridge so that you can hear your inner oracle more clearly. We create a contemplative, ceremonial, sacred space, one with intention, because magic is, obviously it's a very taboo word, but really what it's talking about is using consciousness intentionally to create some kind of change or transformation. So as many of you know, I like to use the mystery arts, like tarot, astrology, numerology, and a little bit of Kabbalah. The wisdom found in mythology, I find particularly mind-blowing sometimes. The depth in those stories is ineffable. And I use those arts and stories to reveal themes that we together can contemplate and explore. And using those insights and ways of understanding yourself, we can help alchemize, which just means to transform some of those things within you that are ready to be released. That's what the death card is really a release of all that doesn't serve, all those false, inauthentic parts of you that have been created to fit into organized society. So that's a big part of this alchemical process that our readings together do, is releasing all that stuff that you don't need anymore. The likelihood is, and I hear this numerous times from clients all over the world, is that you'll already have had some conversation with yourself about the insights that we find together during our reading, things you've been reflecting on in recent times. And again, from many testimonials, when you hear the truth reflected back to you during a reading, it will ring clear as a bell. It's like a confirmation that your own inner oracle is there and speaking with you already. So again, it helps you connect back. It forms a bridge between ego and the deeper self. So yeah, we're opening up a clearer channel, and this makes it much easier to find courage and make those difficult decisions. Being a medicine reader or a tarot reader or whatever, label you want to call it, most of the time people come to you when they're in some kind of distress, or there's a bit of chaos going on, or they're going through an underworld journey. And there's oftentimes like a crossroads, there's a decision to make. So what these readings do is open you up to that inner knowing, and help you make those leaps of faith, opening up to life rather than closing it, and kind of building that faith that the steps you take on your hero's journey are exactly those that you need to be taken at that time. Okay, so we're going to talk about your story as a cipher. We're not too far away from finishing now, guys, so thanks for your patience. As already mentioned in our reading, it's likely that you are going to know a lot of these answers already for within your life. And it's actually your story. This is one of the main things I teach. It's your story itself that gives you the code to unlock what William Blake called your mind-forged manacles. So the way we kind of trap ourselves within limited ego-based thought, essentially. Brahman, God, self, you, capital U. The entire creation is working for you to help you remember and become conscious of who you truly are. This is true self-love, capital self. When you see the mirror out there, as above, so below, that's you as well. That's true empathy. That's true compassion. And I always teach that this experience that we go through, your story, your wounds or wound, especially, that's the cipher to decode the my story, the mystery that's you. So yeah, I said we'd have a little Jung quote in here. So these omens or synchronicities are an ever-present reality for those with the eyes to see. You just have to be able to recognize how your experience is acting as a guide, a compass. And to do this requires your intuition. It's your inner oracle, your third eye, which doesn't shy away from the darker parts of ourselves and of the world, because it's single. It sees holistically. It doesn't just focus on the new age love and light kind of thing. Your third eye is basically your hermit's lamp. And it's going to light you up through even the darkest. It's going to light the way for you through even the darkest of places. So that's what we're really learning to achieve with tarot and these readings, is becoming the hermit, which is our own inner guide who trusts himself, who has created this vitality and strength, the card before. And now he's ready to face all the aspects of him. So it's Gandalf, basically, before going into Moria. He knows the Balrog is there, which is really his shadow. and he knows that there's a probably very painful, very difficult alchemical purification process that's going to happen. And this is basically what is happening throughout our lives when we're going through great change. So these messages, these pieces of intuition, often come, or people often come for these readings during personal darkness times, the times of confusion. And sometimes all you need is an ear and a guide, a word from someone who's been through, shadow and flame. And I can promise you that I've had my share of underworld journeys, without giving too much away about my astrology, because that's dangerous. You don't do that. Pluto conjuncts my sun, so it means that I am constantly having to face that Plutonian underworld kind of experience and transform it in some way. That's my hero's journey. And what it's taught me is that, as uncomfortable as it can make life seem sometimes, unlike what many preach, it's the only way to truly become awake, to become whole, or what is called an avatar. Christ, Buddha, Krishna, Mithras being examples. We've got to face that darkness, and we've got to come from a place of non-resistance to what comes up, rather than constantly trying to live in this new age positivistic claptrap. I was going to swear, but I'll try my best not to. Because it's those places within ourselves that are difficult to see and accept. And this is why the love and light new age community sells so well. But it's only a half truth. If there is light, there is also dark. This is what the Hermetics call the law of polarity. And it's this dark, lunar, feminine, unconscious pole. And it's equally as important as the light, the solar, the masculine conscious realm. As I've constantly said, and you're probably bored of it, but if you put a seed in direct sunlight, without the dark, without the pressure, without the restriction, the Saturnian nature of earthly existence, that seed isn't going to grow. The sun, the light of the sun is going to burn it. It's not ready. It needs time to germinate in the dark. So too do we. And I also know that without the pain and the suffering, without being too boo-hoo about it, without that fire of transformation, that those journeys in the dark, the chthonic journeys, those moments of despair and confusion, I wouldn't be anywhere near as conscious or creative as I am now. And I'm not saying that from a place of being above anyone, but I know where I used to be and where I am now. So I also think that I also wouldn't be able to empathize or guide others through their Mirkwood moments, which is where we feel lost and confused and it's dark and we don't necessarily know the way through. The same goes for anyone. By that I mean the same transformational, creative process that happens during these, darker moments in our life. That happens to anyone courageous that enough to come here to this realm and play the game of separation, of duality. Because all those who do play the game of suffering, of the wheel of samsara, they're going to experience pain and duality until, even when we remember our existence, we're still going to feel pain and separation in duality. That's not what enlightenment truly means. If you have a quick look at my recent post on Bushido, I go into that in a bit more detail. But it's not that pain stops, it's that our reaction or attachment to pain has been transformed through realizing the truth of who and what we are. Okay, so when we do brave those monsters within, and often projected out into the world, and don't get me wrong, there are quote unquote monsters out in the world, the real ones. It's not all a projection. What we're doing is we're shadow boxing, and we're reintegrating into our cosmos our inner hero. And cosmos means our inner order. So it's putting our ego, our sun, into the right relationship with the other characters in our story, our inner cast of characters. When we do this and we go on this hero's journey, and it's continual, it's cyclical, seasonal. We'll go through many heroes' journeys through our lives, hopefully. But as any lover of mythology will know, when the hero completes the cycle, he's gifted or she's gifted what's called a boon, a treasure from the gods. And that treasure really stands for knowing yourself. And I mean self with a capital S. You know your purpose here in Middle Earth, and you know the ultimate truth, that you are already God, you are already Brahman, you are already that supreme reality that all those on the path of enlightenment seek. The irony being that they are already that which they seek, but we have to leave Eden in order to build Jerusalem. Having known paradise, we have to know suffering to rebuild something even greater. And again, this is what builds compassion for other sentient beings that haven't achieved that just yet. So what we're really doing then in these readings is seeking all that ancient wisdom, integrating it within, and not just understanding not on an intellectual level, but also on a feeling, on a sensational level, so in the body, and of course on the intuitional level. Like, I know this is true and I know this is the path I need to go on. Okay, so well, that's the end of the presentation really. So thank you so much for those who joined me, either whether you came from the start or joined halfway through. I will upload the recording soon, so you can watch the whole thing if you missed a little bit. So if anyone would like to ask any questions or give their own insights, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And yeah, just open up the floor to anyone who'd like to speak. Anyone? Oh, the breakdown has got their hand up. Sorry, I've only done this once down. Hi, Nicole. Can you hear me?